Snowbirds aren't coming back. Hotel rooms sit empty. Gift shops near the border are shutting down. But this isn't just about a few missed vacations. This is a quiet crisis reshaping America's tourism heartbeat. Canada's silent retreat is gutting entire towns, leaving beaches, ski resorts, and golf courses across the U.S. eerily quiet. From Florida's coastlines to the snowy peaks of Washington, once booming hotspots are slipping into economic freefall. Some states are already losing billions. Others may be next. So here's the question: is your favorite destination on the chopping block? If you love to explore, if you believe travel is about more than crossing borders, it's about connecting economies and communities, then this video is for you. Stay with us as we reveal the 10 U.S. states hit hardest by Canada's vanishing visitors. And don't forget to subscribe because the next tourism trend may be heading straight for your hometown. Number 1. Florida, the sunshine state in economic shadows. For decades, Florida didn't just attract Canadian tourists, it depended on them. From the white sands of Naples to the bustling streets of Orlando, Canadian snowbirds became woven into the very fabric of Florida's winter economy. They booked long stays. They filled RV parks and golf courses. They dined, shopped, and visited the same local clinics year after year. But now, something's gone quiet. In 2025, Canadian arrivals dropped nearly 25% compared to pre-pandemic levels, and alarmingly, there's no sign of recovery. Condos along the Gulf Coast that used to book up a year in advance now sit dark. RV parks in Fort Myers and Sarasota, once overflowing with Ontario license plates, have rows of empty lots. Even Orlando's theme parks are reporting a noticeable slump in family bookings from Canada. This is not a temporary slowdown, it's a fundamental shift. Florida's tourism-driven communities are feeling it at every level. Restaurants in tourist-heavy areas are reducing staff. Healthcare providers who catered to the same Canadian retirees each season are scaling back. Realtors who once thrived on foreign winter homebuyers now face shrinking leads and growing inventory. Why are Canadians staying away? Multiple factors are converging: a weaker Canadian dollar, rising U.S. travel costs, border delays, and an increasingly polarized political climate that some say is making Canada's aging middle class feel unwelcome. Others point to a cultural shift, where younger generations of Canadians are choosing to explore Europe, Asia, or domestic destinations instead. What's most unsettling isn't just the loss of revenue, it's the fragility it reveals. Florida bet big on Canadians always coming back. But what if they don't? For places like the Villages, Cape Coral, and Clearwater, that question is no longer hypothetical, it's existential. Number 2. California, luxury without loyalty. If Florida was Canada's warm winter home, then California was its upscale escape. From the vineyards of Napa to the glamour of Los Angeles, Canadian travelers helped fuel the state's premium tourism market. But now, that flow is drying up and fast. In early 2025, Canadian tourist arrivals in California fell by over 21% statewide, with regions like San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Lake Tahoe hit even harder. This isn't just about lost hotel bookings, it's a blow to an entire economic tier built around Canadian spending power. Canadian travelers to California aren't average tourists. They're high-income visitors. They stay longer, spend more, and engage in more activities per trip. They rent cars, book private tours, dine in high-end restaurants, and frequent luxury retailers. That's why the recent withdrawal is causing serious concern across multiple industries. In Los Angeles, retailers along Rodeo Drive are reporting significant drops in foot traffic from foreign buyers, especially from Canada. Napa Valley wineries are cutting back on group tastings due to a sharp decline in Canadian wine tours. In Lake Tahoe, a noticeable reduction in bookings from Alberta and British Columbia has ski resorts quietly offering off-season discounts just to stay afloat. The reasons behind the pullback mirror Florida's currency fluctuations, travel inflation, and shifting generational preferences. But there's also a growing tension in U.S.-Canada relations that's more than economic, it's emotional. Canadians, particularly retirees, are increasingly asking whether their presence is still welcomed or worth the cost. The impact ripples beyond tourism. With fewer Canadian dollars entering the market, small businesses, especially in hospitality, retail, and entertainment, are reassessing their strategies. California may be one of the most diverse tourism economies in the world, But when one of your most consistent markets walks away, resilience is put to the test. This isn't just a wake-up call. It's a reality check. For Florida and California, two titans of American tourism, the Canadian retreat exposes a common flaw: overconfidence in a dependable visitor. And now, as bookings fall and spending shrinks, the golden years of snowbird travel may be melting away faster than anyone expected. Number 3. Nevada, what happens when the loyal players leave the table? Las Vegas has always thrived on rhythm tourists arriving, slot machines chiming, restaurants bustling with international accents. And among that global mix, Canadian travelers were once the most loyal high rollers. Whether escaping frigid winters or celebrating milestone getaways, they brought with them not just numbers but consistency. Until now. In 2025, Canadian tourism to Nevada dropped by a staggering 28% in just the first 4 months. While this decline might sound like just another dip in visitor flow, the reality is more dire. Casinos are reporting not just fewer guests, but lower table activity. Resort showrooms, once packed with snowbirds during the off-season, now feature empty seats. And perhaps most telling of all, RV parks across Laughlin and Reno are facing mass cancellations. This isn't a blip. It's a rupture. Canadians weren't casual tourists in Nevada, they were institutional. They stayed longer, gambled more, and returned frequently. Their absence isn't just denting profit margins, it's destabilizing entire business models built on their presence. Staff in mid-tier resorts describe noticeable slowdowns. Wedding chapels that catered to Canadian couples have seen bookings vanish. Helicopter tour operators are offering desperate last-minute deals. And on the Strip itself, bartenders whisper the same story: the crowds feel thinner. The Canadians just aren't here. The causes are layered: unfavorable exchange rates, an aging Canadian demographic opting to stay closer to home, and increased U.S. political turbulence. But the outcome is singular: Nevada's tourism economy is bleeding from the quiet exit of one of its most profitable demographics. And unless that trend reverses, Las Vegas may be forced to reconsider who it's building its future around, because for now, the red maple leaf has gone missing from the Vegas skyline. Number 4. New York. Border cities on the brink. New York is a tourism powerhouse, with New York City often stealing the spotlight. But head north to Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and Plattsburgh, and a very different story is unfolding. These aren't global tourist magnets. They're economic ecosystems built almost entirely on Canadian cross-border traffic, and that ecosystem is collapsing. In early 2025, Canadian visitation to New York State dropped by 25%, with western and northern regions hit hardest. What's most striking isn't just the absence of visitors, it's how fast everything is unraveling. In Buffalo, foot traffic across the Peace Bridge is down significantly. Retailers at the Walden Galleria Mall say weekends feel like midweek. Near Niagara Falls, revenue at gift shops and tourist shuttles has shrunk between 15% and 30%. Border town hotels, once reliably booked by Ontarians seeking a weekend away, are cutting staff and offering last-minute discounts just to stay open. Then there's Plattsburgh, a town that once proudly billed itself as Montreal's U.S. airport. Pre-pandemic, more than half of its flights were filled with Canadian travelers. Today, those same flights are going half empty. Airport staff are facing reduced hours. Rental car companies are downsizing fleets. Even local coffee shops near the terminals are shortening their hours. This isn't just about tourism, it's about identity. For decades, these towns have grown around the assumption that Canadians would always come, shop, gamble, fly, and fill restaurants. But that assumption is now breaking under economic pressure and shifting public sentiment. Why the change? Higher costs, passport fatigue, political frictions, a growing comfort among Canadians with staying local or flying internationally from home airports. But underneath it all is a sobering truth. These New York communities were never built to thrive without cross-border love. And the silence is deafening. Number 5. Maine. When day trippers disappear, whole towns fade. Maine's charm has always been understated rugged coastlines, lobster shacks, and scenic routes that stretch into the horizon. For decades, it also thrived on something just as reliable: Canadian day trippers. Every spring and summer, families from Quebec and New Brunswick would cross the border for outlet shopping, seafood lunches, and spontaneous overnights in sleepy towns like Calais or Halton. But in 2025, that rhythm broke. Between February and April alone, Maine recorded 166,000 fewer crossings from Canadian vehicles compared to the same time in 2024, a staggering 26% decline. That's not a slowdown. It's a full-blown economic alert. Hotels in Bangor are seeing record numbers of empty rooms. Gift shops in Kittery are reporting their lowest spring sales in a decade. And local gas stations near the border, once reliant on Quebecois drivers filling up on cheaper U.S. fuel, now watch empty pumps from behind quiet counters. But it's not just about tourism. Canadian shoppers once drove across for prescription meds, dental appointments, seasonal jobs, and bulk groceries. That spending evaporating has a multiplier effect. Waitresses lose hours, delivery drivers face layoffs, mom and pop businesses close early, or for good. Even towns that once prided themselves on their cross-border culture are now questioning their future. In Calais, locals speak quietly about shops that used to cater almost exclusively to Canadians, now shuttered or up for sale. Border towns that once thrived on easy access are facing an identity crisis. Some blame the rising cost of travel. Others say it's the post-pandemic border rules that still feel unfriendly. But one truth stands above all. When you lose your most loyal weekend visitors, a minor tourism issue becomes a major economic fracture. Number 6. Washington, the quiet collapse of Interstate 5. At first glance, Washington state looks unaffected. The ferries still glide across Puget Sound, coffee shops are humming, and Interstate 5 is busy as ever. But zoom in on its northern corridor near the Canadian border, and the story shifts dramatically. For decades, residents of British Columbia flowed freely into Washington for day trips. Bellingham was the go-to stop for cheaper gas, bulk shopping, and Seahawks games. Towns like Blaine and Linden thrived on this traffic. But in 2025, those cross-border visits have dropped sharply, and the effects are spreading fast. Over Family Day weekend, a peak Canadian holiday, 3 major border crossings saw huge declines: Peace Arch down 45%, Pacific Highway down 34%, Sumas down 11%. Those numbers aren't seasonal. They're systemic. For businesses near the border, the situation is critical. Gas stations report losing hundreds of customers each week. Local diners and bakeries that once welcomed a steady stream of Canadians now face empty seats on what used to be their busiest days. Even ski areas near Mount Baker are reporting fewer lift ticket sales and fewer Canadians booking winter vacation homes. What makes Washington's case unique is that it was never about luxury tourism, it was about volume. Spontaneous, frequent, and consistent spending from BC residents that kept entire communities alive. Now, that dependable stream is drying up. Many small retailers along I-5 have cut weekend staff. Others are closing second locations. And for property managers, the once booming cross-border rental market is showing signs of long-term decline. The reasons? High U.S. prices, longer wait times at the border, and a sense among Canadians that maybe it's not worth the trip anymore. It's not hostility, it's fatigue. But for towns like Blaine and Ferndale, that fatigue is turning into financial erosion. And if the numbers continue their downward slide, Washington may be facing not a temporary tourist dip, but the end of an era. Number 7. Michigan, a gateway losing its grip. Michigan isn't just another U.S. state with a border crossing, it's a gateway. The iconic Ambassador Bridge, the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel, and the Blue Water Bridge at Port Huron have long served as lifelines connecting Canadians to American commerce, culture, and recreation. But now, in 2025, that lifeline is fraying and the economic bleeding is becoming hard to hide. Cross-border visits from Canada have dropped by 19% since January, a figure that might seem manageable until you realize how deeply integrated Canadian traffic is into Michigan's local economies. In Detroit, shop owners near downtown say weekends are quieter, casino foot traffic is lighter, and longtime Windsor regulars have stopped showing up. Once reliable Canadian gamblers who made up nearly 20% of Detroit's casino revenue before 2020 are now conspicuously absent. But it's not just Detroit. Port Huron's once packed outlet malls are scaling back staff. Parking lots that used to be dotted with Ontario plates now stand half empty. Even small towns near the Soo Locks are seeing a drop in tour bus bookings and cross-border excursions. This isn't just a retail crisis. Canadian money has long seeped into Michigan's broader economy: auto parts, construction, logistics, and education. When that money slows, everything feels it. Locals point to inflation, unfavorable exchange rates, and a colder diplomatic climate. Others cite stricter entry requirements and lingering health travel hesitations. But whatever the mix, the result is clear: Michigan's cross-border ecosystem is under pressure like never before. And if confidence from Canadian consumers doesn't return soon, the damage may shift from reversible to permanent. The question now facing Detroit, Port Huron, and Sault Ste. Marie is sobering. What happens when your best neighbor stops crossing the street? Number 8. Arizona, desert gold turning to dust. For years, Arizona was a winter haven for thousands of Canadians looking to trade snowstorms for sunshine. They came by the RV full, turning quiet desert towns into seasonal boomtowns. From Mesa and Yuma to Scottsdale and Tucson, Canadians weren't just tourists, they were temporary residents, supporting restaurants, clinics, golf courses, and local real estate markets. But in 2025, those visitors are vanishing, and the desert is starting to feel very empty. Canadian travel to Arizona fell by 22% during peak snowbird season, and the economic ripple is severe. RV parks that once had 2-year waiting lists now have vacancies. In Tucson, businesses that tailored services around returning snowbirds, tax advisors, medical specialists, even hair salons are experiencing steep drop-offs. Even the golf industry, a pillar of Arizona's leisure economy, is feeling the strain. Courses near Phoenix are discounting memberships and freezing hiring. Local real estate agents report that Canadian buyers, once eager to scoop up second homes, are staying on the sidelines. Why the exodus? Currency pain, inflation, and travel fatigue are part of the story. But there's also growing anecdotal evidence that political climate and cultural comfort play a role. Several retirees from Ontario and Alberta have shared that they no longer feel as welcome in the US as they once did, and are choosing to stay in Canada or explore Europe and Central America instead. In towns like Yuma, where over 30% of winter tourism once came from Canadians, this isn't just a dip, it's a structural disruption. Local economies built on seasonal visitors are now being forced to reevaluate their survival model. Arizona's clear skies haven't changed, but its most dependable guests are no longer landing. And the silence they've left behind echoes through every empty restaurant, booth, and RV pad in the desert. Number 9. Texas, Sunbelt stronghold slipping quietly. Texas has long been one of the most visited U.S. states by Canadians drawn by warm winters, wide open spaces, and affordable vacation homes. Cities like San Antonio, Dallas, and Corpus Christi have quietly welcomed millions of Canadian travelers over the years. But in 2025, the stream has turned to a trickle. According to projections by the U.S. Travel Association, Texas stands to lose over $1.4 billion in tourism revenue if current trends continue, and a significant chunk of that is tied directly to the retreat of Canadian visitors. Unlike other hotspots, Texas doesn't always make headlines for international travel, but the connection runs deep. Snowbirds from provinces like Manitoba and Saskatchewan often choose the Lone Star State over Florida or Arizona for its relative affordability, low taxes, and familiar southern charm. But this year, they're not showing up. Hotel occupancy rates in places like Galveston and McAllen have dropped. Short-term rentals, once popular with Canadians, are sitting vacant well into peak season. Restaurants that cater to winter residents are reducing hours, laying off staff, or shuttering early. What's happening? It's the same storm of issues seen elsewhere: rising prices, currency imbalance, and a growing feeling among Canadian retirees that cross-border travel is no longer as easy or as welcoming as it once was. Some cite policy fatigue, healthcare insurance complications, unclear visa requirements, or slow border processes that make even a simple winter escape feel like a bureaucratic gauntlet. But beyond paperwork and politics, there's a deeper problem. Many Texan counties, especially in the Rio Grande Valley, built winter economies around seasonal Canadian influxes. Without them, these communities are scrambling. Festivals are seeing lower turnout. Golf resorts are offering unadvertised discounts. Even mobile home parks, once filled with Ontario plates, now look eerily quiet. Texas has always stood tall in the U.S. tourism landscape. But when one of its most loyal visitor bases quietly walks away, even this giant feels the ground shift. The last one, Hawaii, paradise interrupted. For many Canadians, Hawaii isn't just a dream vacation, it's a winter ritual. A direct flight from Vancouver or Calgary meant sand between your toes by sunset. But in 2025, paradise seems farther away. Canadian bookings to Hawaii have fallen by 14% through mid-February, and while that number might not sound catastrophic on paper, it masks a much larger economic shock. Why? Because Hawaii depends more heavily on international tourism than almost any other state, and Canadians have traditionally made up one of its top foreign markets. Now, hotel occupancy in Maui is down. Tour guides are reporting back-to-back cancellations. And condo owners, who once had year-long waiting lists of returning Canadian renters, are suddenly advertising on discount platforms to fill vacancies. It's a troubling trend. Hawaii's tourism sector accounts for nearly 1/5 of the state's total economy. When even one key market pulls back, the ripple turns into a wave, and that wave is already crashing onto the island's small businesses. Shops that once catered to loyal Canadians are struggling to survive. Local artisans, cafe owners, and rental managers are all reporting softer revenue. And the absence isn't just being felt in dollars, it's cultural. For decades, Canadian snowbirds helped build communities in places like Kihei and Kona. Their absence has left both a financial and emotional void. Why the drop-off? Travel costs have soared. Political tensions linger. And increasingly, Canadians are opting for closer, cheaper destinations or simply staying home. Some travelers cite complicated COVID-era experiences that haven't been forgotten. Others just say Hawaii has become too expensive, too uncertain, and too out of reach. In short, the dream hasn't died, but it's faded. And for an island chain that relies so deeply on predictable international travel, the silence from the north is more than just noticeable, it's existential. What began as a quiet pullback is now a full-blown reckoning. From Florida's shuttered condos to Hawaii's empty tour vans, the absence of Canadian travelers is exposing something few in the U.S. tourism industry were prepared to face: overdependence on a single market. These 10 states spanning deserts, coastlines, casinos, and ski slopes built economies around the seasonal loyalty of Canadian visitors. And now that loyalty is wavering. Whether due to rising costs, policy fatigue, political chill, or shifting travel habits, the snowbirds are staying home, and the financial aftershocks are only beginning. But this isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a call to action. If your hometown, business, or state relies on international visitors, it's time to rethink resilience. Diversify, rebuild trust, modernize access. Because once a loyal traveler feels unwelcome or overpriced, they don't just delay a trip, they change the habit altogether. If this opened your eyes, subscribe for more real-world insights behind the headlines. Which state surprised you most? Drop your thoughts below, because the future of American tourism may just depend on how we respond to this silence.